Hi, I'm Mash Ponigala, brand strategist and creative director at Spellbrand. In this ongoing series on brand archetypes, today we talk about the Explorer brand archetype. Now, the Explorer brand lives for adventure, or more precisely, they exist to help their customers go on adventures, express themselves, or find self-actualization. Now, they're all about freedom and individualism, right? They want to discover all there is to discover. These brands are ambitious and they often keep their fans engaged by announcing new initiatives, programs, or plans. Now, when it comes to the consumer brand archetypes or the consumer archetypes, an explorer archetype person or group of people are people looking for adventure. They are looking for something beyond the ordinary, right? Something that stimulates them, something that engages them. And therefore, the brand archetype that aligns with that kind of target audience has to also kind of provide that stimulus, that exploration, the sense of adventure, the excitement that goes into adventure. Now, of course, life is an adventure, right? And if you look at any product, if you look at any service, if you look at any business, it's all about adventure. Whether it's risk that you take, it's the unknown. So you're stepping into or you're purchasing a product, you're buying a service, there's always that element of risk. There's always that element of that unknownness, right? It's uncharted territory, unless of course you've been buying the same stuff again and again. And brands that understand this part of the psychology of the consumers, where consumers are looking for that adventure, they can then align their brand archetype towards that target audience. Now, brands can be entirely made up of explorer brand archetype, or they could have a part of their brand archetype as an explorer. Because to be honest, when I think of brands, including Spellbrand and the other companies that I run, there's always an element of that excitement that we try and induce into our brands. Because, as I mentioned, people look for adventure. And we feel that our service is an adventure. You know, we build brands. We help brands differentiate themselves. We help brands go from a red ocean to a blue ocean. That is about making their competition irrelevant, right? So it is an adventure. And so even though our predominant kind of brand archetype is made up of creator and sage, where of course we are the creators, we create a lot of stuff. We're sage because we share knowledge, we try and educate our target audience, not in a when I say educate, not in a kind of a patronizing way, but rather as a sharing. But there's also this sense of adventure, a big sense of adventure, especially when we work with startups and entrepreneurs. There's always this excitement of adventure. So we try to bring that over. So similarly, take a hard look at your target audience. Take a look at your product and service. Is there a scope for excitement, right? A scope for excitement beyond just the product. Right now, of course, every product is exciting. If you're the product owner or the stakeholder, then of course you will say, yes, my product is exciting. It's not that I'm talking about. I'm talking about what happens in the life of your target audience when they are engaging with your brand or when they're engaging with your product or service. That is the entry point of that excitement. And through your messaging, through your brand identity, through the look and feel, and through every part of the buyer's journey, you got to look for points of infusion, points of excitement where you can tweak your messaging, you can tweak your identity to bring that excitement into the foray, along with, of course, your product and service. Now for the Explorer brand archetype, the brand promise is freedom. So freedom from, it could be risk, it could be shackles of bad service, bad products, bad experiences. It's also about the freedom in life. People want to be free. People want to have a free life. So the goal is to find fulfillment. And the strategy is to experience all there is to experience. Now the personality to project is the seeker, the trailblazer, and the ideal kind of customer. These customers value freedom of expression and trailblazing, and they feel loyal to brands that display these characteristics. Now, explorers tend to be risk takers, so they value ads or messaging that take risks too, right? They tend to sit up and take notice when presented with new stimuli. Now, of course, the weakness with this kind of brand archetype is that these brands can be perceived as reckless or as encouraging questionable activities, right? And they may be perceived as flaky, but don't worry about it. That's just the perception, right? So you can always change the perception with careful messaging, with careful branding, visual identities, and a positioning strategy. You can always manage this weakness. Now, color palette. The suggested color palette is blue and shades of blue. And you might be thinking, you're talking about freedom, you're talking about excitement, you're talking about adventure, exploration. Why is it blue? Would red or something more bold make sense? No, that's because adventure, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be explosive and bold. Actually, blue really brings home that sense of adventure and seeking and the trailblazing with calmness, and that has to be balanced. It's like a well-balanced recipe. So blue works really well. In terms of images that conjure up this kind of feeling, you see these images here. These fit that kind of trailblazer, that seeking the adventure. And you can see maps and all that excitement. Of course, there's a dash of yellow and red in here, but it gives that sense of trailblazing and seeking that. Now, example brands are Jeep. Jeep is a quintessential explorer brand. If you look at their visual imagery, you will notice how they neatly align their image with the product that they sell, right? Customers are loyal to this brand because Jeep gets it. Their adverts, their messaging often showcases their customers enjoying a grand adventure behind the wheel. Now, again, I don't want to play this ad because YouTube doesn't like that. But I will leave a link to the main articles. You can go and check out these adverts. The next one, of course, is Red Bull, right? Red Bull is a great example of a strong explorer brand. Of course, it wasn't particularly well known until it started sponsoring a lot of sporting events, right? But it took advantage of these sponsorships by rebranding itself as one of the most exciting sports drink out there. Red Bull, it gives you wings, right? You know that famous slogan. Now again, there's a great advert that I put up on our article. Go check it out. I think you will love it because these articles actually show you how these brands really take it to the next level by infusing adventure. Red Bull, of course, is doing it by directly aligning with physical activity, and these are extreme sports, snowboarding and what do you call air sports? Yeah, air sports and things like that. But Jeep does it a little more subtly. It does show you off-road adventures and things like that, but it's a little subtle. So look at your brand closely, figure out if your brand archetype can be predominantly explorer or at least a part of it. Now, I'm not saying that every brand should have all the different kind of brand archetypes and little bits and pieces or little percentages. That's not what I'm saying. Branding and brand archetypes are all about your particular situation, your brand, your target audience, your message, your positioning. It has to make sense. It's not a formula or a recipe where you pick and choose and then just make it up. No, you have to start from your target audience. You have to understand them very well. You have to understand the buyer persona, the buyer's journey, and then align that with what your product or service is, what your brand represents, all the things that I always talk about. Because look, at the end of the day, brand building is not about fighting competitors. It's actually about making competitors irrelevant, right? Making the competition irrelevant. It's swimming towards the open waters, getting away from the bloody kind of waters where, there's lots of sharks and they're all fighting each other over the little fish, right? So that should be your goal. And to help make that happen, brand archetypes play a very critical role. All right, if you have any questions about Explorer brand archetype, leave them below and I will answer them. Till my next archetype, take care.